7 o'clock. Boom, we're ready. Well, happy Friday evening. Thank you for coming and spending your time with us and with the candidates running for mayor of Jacksonville. We're so excited that you're here. We want to welcome you to our Beaches Watch City of Jacksonville Mayoral Candidate Forum. I'm Maria Mark, and president of Beaches Watch, and I'll be your host tonight. My esteemed colleague, Bill Gulliford, will be the forum moderator. But first, I want to thank Director Bobby Spahn and Beaches Vineyard Church for hosting our forum again in their wonderful and spacious facility. We couldn't have done this without your generosity. I also want to thank the candidates, Daniel Davis and Donna Deegan, for accepting our invitation to participate in this forum. And I want to thank you for running for office. It's not an easy decision, and particularly in today's political climate. You know, it takes a lot of personal and professional dedication, sacrifices, time, and money, right? So we just want to thank you for coming back and spending your evening with us. For those of you who don't know about us, Beaches Watch has served the beaches community since 2004. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan civic organization whose mission is to promote and facilitate educated and productive citizen involvement in government decisions that impact the quality of our beaches communities. We are a membership-based organization, and when you join Beaches Watch, you help support candidate forums such as this one, the Fletcher High School Flan Sharp Memorial Scholarship, our Give Back Award, and our Friends of the Beaches Award. So please consider joining, renewing, or even donating tonight. Our ladies are out in the hall. You probably saw them as you walked in. We're glad to take your money tonight. So thank you. This forum will be videotaped and will be available on our website tomorrow. We ask that you share the video so those who could not make it this evening will have an opportunity to watch the forum before our election day on May 16th. Okay, ground rules for the forum. Each candidate will be asked the same question, and each will answer on a rotational basis, so no one candidate is always answering first or last. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to answer the opening question and 1 minute for closing statements. All other questions will be allowed a 90-second response time. Our timekeeper, Steve Pescatelli, has our official time cards. He will hold up a 30-second and a time is up card. Once the time is up card is shown, he will ring the bell to let you know your time has expired. Thank you very much. However, we will, if you're in the middle of your sentence or your thought, we will let you finish that. So we'll give deference to that. Audience, ground rules for you, simple. We ask that you refrain from cheering, jeering, or otherwise, so each candidate will have their fully allotted time to answer. We will applaud at the beginning of the forum and at the end. So thank you. And now, my esteemed colleague, if you are ready.
I guess I should be a gentleman.
That's okay. I'm happy to help you.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria. Camera rolling?
God. I don't think you're going to be in it, Bill.
Figures.
All right.
For those that don't know me, I'm Bill Gulliford, and I want to also welcome you to the Beaches Watch Mayoral Forum, Candidate Forum. And I too want to thank the candidates for participating. I'm sure by now that they're pretty tired with all this, but their willingness to engage the public shows a commitment to the office they seek and the community they wish to serve. And I know from personal experience it is tough. As stated at the first mayoral forum, the relationship between the city of Jacksonville and the three beach cities is unique. The city of Jacksonville is our county government, period. Both because no one knows how this was supposed to work right after consolidation, and there was no framework in place, the relationship struggled to find common ground. From lawsuits, efforts to form a new county, and perceived disinterest, the beaches have remained at odds off and on with Jacksonville for a number of years. Yet the beaches are a valuable part of Jacksonville, not only for the obvious ocean front, but also financially. In 2022, the beaches taxpayers contributed 11.9% of the total ad valorem taxes in Jacksonville, while only representing 4.5% of the population. That's less than 5% of the population paying almost 12% of the total ad valorem taxes. But we're not clamoring for rebates per se, just fair treatment with the county services we need and desire. In the 1995 amendment to the interlocal agreement, it stated that within a year, the parties were to consolidate the amendments with the original interlocal agreement into a working document with a primary effort to design a framework for the parties' long-term relationship. That has never been done. So the stage is set, and we're so very glad the two of you have joined us tonight. And I will start with Ms. Deegan, and that's the only 2-minute response tonight, and that is, why are you the right person for the job as mayor?
Well, I'm the right person for the job because I love this city and I believe we can do a whole lot better. We have been living with a city government for a very long time that has not brought the people inside. And I think a lot of you folks out here at the beaches can attest to that. You probably feel that way more than a lot of people in the city do, but by and large, it has been a government that's worked in a silo, that hasn't really wanted to bring people in. And as I have said repeatedly in this campaign, it has been a government that has been acting very much in a bully fashion. My way or the highway. You agree with us, or you lose your job, or you're not around, or we don't want to hear from you. And it's just not the way to do business. I have had so many people that have come to me that work with the city or have had business with the city that are so frustrated in trying to deal with their small business. They're frustrated in trying to put a bid in. They're frustrated with trying to get anybody to talk to them. And I know that I've talked to many people who have said, I was appointed to a board 8 years ago and I've never heard from anybody since then. So we need to change that. So one of the things that I really want to do when I get elected is really diversify and change the board structure in our city and activate those boards. We need more beaches people to be participating. And as I said, at our very first forum we had, gosh, it seems like a year ago now, I think we need a liaison from the beaches to Jacksonville. I want to be a mayor that is here to connect with you and to be here for you. And I know there are a lot of issues between the interlocal agreement. I know there's a lot of questions about double taxation. I am a mayor that knows you and will be a mayor for you. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity to do that.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Davis, same question.
Sure. Thank you, Councilman Gullford. And thank you, everyone that is here tonight. And Donna started with mentioning how much she loves our city. And there's no doubt in my mind that you love Jacksonville. And I would say that everybody in here tonight, you have a passion for your community. You would be here on a Friday night to listen to what the one of the leaders of the next city would have to say. And so I just want to thank you for being here. And you asked the question, why do you think you should be the next mayor of Jacksonville? I've had a deep desire to serve my city since I was in middle school, and I had the opportunity to work at civic associations out on the west side of Jacksonville and work in different organizations to try to make my community a better place. And I ran for office at a young age, didn't win the first time out. It was very painful to lose that first race, but had the opportunity to serve my city 4 years later on the city council and in almost every leadership position in the city except for mayor. And I have a deep knowledge of how the city government works, the finances of government, and that's very important for everybody in here that's considering who they will choose to be their next mayor. I had the opportunity to serve for 4 years in the Florida legislature and understanding how important the rational nexus is between Tallahassee and Jacksonville, how important it is for infrastructure funding to make sure that we have great relationships in our state capital. But the last 10 years, I've had the opportunity to serve you at the Jacks Chamber, creating tens of thousands of jobs for this community and working with small businesses across this community. 2,000 small businesses we've trained in Jacksonville, Florida. While we're doing that, we're bringing corporate leaders to this community, corporate headquarters that are very high-paying jobs that help this entire community. And why would I say all that? Why would I think that I'm the right person for the job? Because I am very, very qualified and ready to hit the ground running day one. You are going to be selecting your next CEO of the city of Jacksonville. And I have the experience necessary to be able to hit the job, hit the ground running day one. And so I'd be honored to earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, Mr. Davis. What are your strengths and how they contribute to being mayor?
That's a great question. Listen, I believe in the servant leadership model. I believe in placing people around you that have knowledge of how you can make a community or your organization better or stronger. I think about my leadership group at the Chamber of Commerce, where I'm the CEO now. I'm surrounding myself with people that are way more knowledgeable in their specific area of interest than I am, because that's going to make me better. A very diverse group of folks that are going to think differently than I do, because that helps me be a better solution-oriented CEO. Not to just think and talk about what I believe is the right way, but to have people test my vision. And in my opinion, iron sharpens iron. And you need to have people that are not from the same area you are, not from the same thought that you are, to help you make the best decisions. And that's what I'll bring to the mayor's office. The exact same mentality, the exact same opportunity, the diverse thought that's going to make Jacksonville a better place.
Thank you. Ms. Deegan, same question.
What's the question?
Oh, I'm sorry. What are your strengths and how do they contribute to being mayor?
Well, I'll tell you, I think my strengths are that I'm a leader. I'm not a lifetime politician. I'm not somebody who has wanted to be a politician my entire life. I'm somebody who's wanted to serve my community. I'm somebody who knows how to vision. I have visioned for the people of Jacksonville. I've been a leader for the people of Jacksonville my entire life, whether it was leading a newsroom for 25 years where I was in every neighborhood of this city listening and trying to help people understand policies that very often did not make sense in their lives, or whether it was after my 3 bouts with breast cancer when I saw a need, when people came to me and said, I can't put food on my table and afford my treatment. And I said, you know what? I'm going to create an organization and build it and run it that will help people in my city. And so what I have spent most of my life doing is serving this city. I know how to vision. I know how to put a team together that will bring that vision to fruition. And I know how to communicate to the folks to bring them into that vision and to sell folks around the city on that vision and to listen to them and bring their words into that vision. So I think those are my strengths, that and the fact that I just think that we need somebody that isn't an insider, that isn't an establishment politician, that sees people and that believes in people's humanity. I think it's time for us to come together as a community instead of the divisiveness that we've seen for so long.
Thank you. Well, you get the next question. Beach officials will work closely with top-level officials in your administration, like the Chief Administrative Officer and others. Can you tell us what criteria and qualifications you will use in hiring your administrative leadership?
Well, I think it's very important. I think Daniel mentioned this, and certainly I think so too. It's very, very important to build a team that has the strengths that you need to run the city. And if you have somebody who's a chief administrative officer, that has to be a person with experience, a person that understands how city government runs, that understands how to create that team. So I would look for leadership qualities in that person. I would look for a person who would help me build a team that would help the city to run in the most efficient possible fashion, but also to make the changes that I think are absolutely needed to create a city that finally works for everybody instead of one that runs in the same ruts that we have seen over and over again for the past 8, 10, 20 years.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, you need to question?
No, they placed one on the table.
Okay.
It's a great question, and I believe in diversity of thought. That's what I believe has been the secret of the success that I've had both at the Chamber and when I ran the Northeast Florida Builders Association. And I would tell everyone here tonight, I think that that's what we need to bring to the city of Jacksonville. I don't think we need to go outside of our city to go find qualified people to be able to help run our city. Okay, I think that we should have folks that know Jacksonville, that understand how Jacksonville works, understands the differences between Murray Hill and the beaches, instead of having to try to teach somebody what that means in our community. And I also believe that, I think we'll have highly educated people that work in the administration, but there are also folks that have a deep knowledge of how public works is operating in Jacksonville, or the fire department and how it works. You don't necessarily have to have a PhD that has been educated somewhere else to come in and be able to be a part of that administration. I think we need to have people that are highly qualified, highly educated in some situations, but people that know our community, and that's who I'm going to surround myself with.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Davis, What is your position on the city of Jacksonville offering incentives for workforce housing at the beaches as is done in the rest of the city of Jacksonville, particularly downtown?
Yeah, I'm in favor of incentives. I think that there are occasions where the city of Jacksonville and the community here can be a part of making things happen that market forces wouldn't necessarily allow to happen. And in cases where you bring businesses to this community, I have no problem with investing in those businesses that are choosing to come here. I do think all of those incentives have to be performance-based. You don't give somebody a check up front before they produce the product they tell you they're going to produce. And in this situation where you talk about workforce housing, I believe the city of Jacksonville and the surrounding community should find public property and make part of that available for workforce housing. We should remove the bloated bureaucracy that holds up the permitting process, and we should also make sure that we put capital infrastructure dollars towards workforce housing. That's what I'm going to do as mayor, and I think that we can create workforce housing along the way, both downtown, out of the beaches, and other surrounding communities.
Thank you. Mrs. Deegan?
Yeah, I think sometimes incentives are necessary, and I'm not opposed to incentives. I have a three-pillared plan for Jacksonville, which starts with infrastructure. And I think that very often, if we would have in this city taken care of our public infrastructure, and I know at the beaches we're particularly vulnerable with everything that's happening out here, if we had taken care of the public infrastructure, there wouldn't be quite so many incentives that are necessary for builders to want to build what they want to build in our city. But however, I do think workforce housing is something which is slightly different than from affordable housing. We need both of those things. But I think if we're going to give any builder an incentive to build, it needs to include some of that in it. If we're going to give incentives, then there must be workforce or affordable housing involved in those incentives.
Thank you. Ms. Deegan, you both stated your support for policing. In fact, one of you offered support for substantial increases in the number of officers, yet there are unfilled vacancies in the sheriff's office for sworn officers and in particular corrections officers, well over 100 currently. What can you do as mayor to help fill the current vacancies and boost recruiting?
Well, I think it's very important to have enough police officers on the street. I have said that repeatedly. I know I have been attacked as something otherwise, but I am somebody who 100% supports our police officers and wants to make sure that we have enough police officers on the streets to make sure that our citizens are safe. I want to go further than that, however. I want to make sure that we're also getting underneath the causes of crime. I want to make sure that we are making sure that literacy is a high priority for us because 70% of the kids in our jails are illiterate. I want to make sure that we are taking care of prevention and intervention programs. And why do I mention all that in terms of filling those officer positions? I think that we need police officers, but I think if we're going to retain our police officers, I think we need to give them an environment that is better to work in. And I think that community policing will help with that. I think creating some of those other programs that will take some of the pressures off of them would do that. But we also need to look at the entire structure around our pension, and I'm sure we'll get into that at some point too.
Mr. Davis.
Sure. How do we attract the 100 officers that we need to fill the vacancies? In my opinion, obviously TK Waters, who's our sheriff, is going to lead that effort in recruitment. And I believe we need to market to communities that have not been as supportive to their police departments, who you have sheriff's office employees that don't feel like they have the support of their community, and they're willing to come somewhere else. We're seeing a mass migration take place in this country, and I would like to attract and market to those communities to make sure we have highly, highly talented police officers in those communities that would love to work in a place that would support them. That's number one. Two, I'm going to add 200 new police officers to the street. That is 50 officers every year. Because obviously you have to train, you have to equip, you have to get them in the field with the field training officer to be able to make sure they know and are equipped to be able to serve us. So we're not only going to fill the vacancies that we have, but we're also going to hire 200 new officers. It's about $100,000 per officer to get them on the streets. So it'd be about $5 million a year. Understanding the city budget, I know where we can get that money and we'll be able to fully fund it.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, how will your administration differ from the current administration when it comes to moving Jacksonville forward?
And I'm not interested in talking about the current administration. I think it's most important for us to talk about what we see moving Jacksonville forward. And I'm going to focus on, like we mentioned earlier, uniting the community, and I think that starts at City Hall. I was on the City Council for 8 years, and I understand what it means to work with a mayor and a mayor working with their City Council. And oftentimes, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I disagreed with John Payton when he was mayor. And we, most of the time, worked that out behind the scenes and didn't have a public feud. And I think that's really important to send that message to the community, that we can work together, we can pull the rope in the same direction. That doesn't mean the checks and balances of your legislative branch and your executive branch aren't always tugging at each other. That's important, because that's where you get the best product. But I don't think you need to have public fights. And I think that sends a message to the neighborhoods. When your government can work together and be unified, that means we can work on unifying the community. I think showing passion and compassion and love for every community is another area where we can focus on making sure we unite. And that means making sure that infrastructure dollars go to every person in this community that works hard and puts taxpayer dollars towards City Hall. And so that's something I'm going to focus on, not only unifying City Hall, but making sure every community has their hard-earned taxpayer dollars returned to them, mostly in the case of infrastructure, but also with the use of public safety officers.
Ms. Deegan.
Well, I think how you campaign is how you're going to govern, and how you govern is how you campaign. And you can't talk about unity when you spend all of your time with the same toxic consultants that are running the city currently, that are running your campaign. The same folks are running his campaign that are running the city right now. And so that's why he doesn't want to talk about that, because it's going to be the same environment that we have right now. And I get really, frankly, disappointed to hear conversations about unity when all you see on television all day long are ads that are divisive, that are disingenuous, and that frankly are generating lies about me and about every other opponent that you ran against. How will I be different? I'll be different because I have been talking nonstop about the pillars of my campaign, what I will do for this community, how I will bring all of our neighborhoods together. I have been knocking on doors and having town hall meetings for 1.5 years, showing people how I will listen and bring them into this government. So we will not have a government that keeps the people out when I am mayor. We will have a government of, by, and for the people of Jacksonville.
Please, please. Ms. Deegan, what is your vision for Jacksonville, including the beaches, and how do you plan to implement that vision? And please be specific.
Well, my vision is for a resilient, healthy, safe, thriving community where everyone has the opportunity for a good quality of life. And what does that look like? Well, to me, that looks like making sure, first of all, that we are taking care of our crumbling infrastructure. We have infrastructure that is crumbling out here at the beaches. It's especially important for us because we're on the ocean, we have the intercoastal, we have a lot of areas that are very vulnerable to flooding. Same is true in many of the older areas of our city. So what I'll focus on immediately is those 3 pillars. Infrastructure is first, second is healthcare and safety. We have the best healthcare in this country, right here in Jacksonville, and we have the worst health outcomes in the state of Florida and some of the worst in the country. And I have a 4-point plan to create a better scenario for connecting our nonprofit community with more grant dollars and educating people about what's available to them in this city. We're going to have a chief health officer who is a public health physician to deal with that. And then the final piece for me is the economy. We have got to rev the engines of small business in this city. We have so many small business people who have come to me and said, it takes me 1, 2, 3 years just to get my business through permitting. We have a broken permitting system in this city, and we've got to make sure that it works for everybody. We've got to streamline that. So there are so many things that we can do, and I think the same things are true for the beaches. It comes down to relationships and making sure that we are taking care of those relationships and the needs of the community within those pillars.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, same question.
Yeah, sure. I spend every afternoon knocking on doors, talking to voters in their neighborhoods on their front porches. And there are 2 very, very clear issues that you as voters want to see. One, you want safer streets. I mean, by far, when I talk to folks, when we ask folks what their most important issue is, that is, I want to feel safe in my community. The second thing is, I don't want government wasting money. I'm going to bring smaller government to the city of Jacksonville. I promise you that we are not going to grow government, that we're going to make sure your taxpayer dollars that you work hard and earn and send to Jacksonville city government get back out to the streets, to your neighborhoods for infrastructure, because that's really the purpose of government. And many times government can lose its way with adding programs and getting more bloated and more cumbersome, when governments really should be focused on, one, keeping you safe, and two, making sure you have proper infrastructure. And that's the same principle that I want to bring to the beaches as well. I mean, I want to make sure that I work alongside the leaders out here at the beach. I don't want to try to tell the beach what they should or should want. That's not what your city mayor should do. What your city mayor should do is make sure you have the resources necessary when you invest your hard-earned tax dollars, that you see a return on that. And I've heard over and over again that there are concerns here at the beach about that. And I'm going to address them. I'm going to keep government small. I'm going to get your taxpayer dollars back out on the street, and I'm going to make you safer. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, what assets do you think the beaches have, and how would your administration capitalize on those assets to benefit the beach's residents?
Well, there's an obvious asset out of the beaches, and that's the beach. It's incredible. It's beautiful, and I grew up on the west side, and a lot of times folks that grow up at the beach don't spend a lot of time on the west side. I mean, that's just realistic discussion in Jacksonville. We have a big city, and I haven't spent as much of my life out at the beach. That's something a west sider would probably say. But what I can tell you are the beaches of Jacksonville are so beautiful and are the biggest asset. The waterways of Jacksonville are our biggest asset, in my opinion. That's what sets us apart from any other community. The river, the intercoastal, the tributaries, the coastline is incredible, and we should focus on the water life. I believe that tourism is an incredible way for us to continue growing our economy, and that's an attraction for people who don't want to be Mickey Mouse. They want to enjoy the natural resources that we have here in this community. And I want to focus on that, but not only focus on that when we bring people here to visit, to make sure you're safe during that process. Make sure they're safe during that process. And that's something I'm going to focus on. Great assets. We have so much to enjoy here in this community, the natural resources we have. And I'm going to protect them and make sure that we protect you at the same time as we move forward.
Thank you. Ms. Deegan.
Well, obviously, I'm a little biased because I've lived out here for 35 years, but I think our greatest asset is our people. I've seen that firsthand with the race that we run through here with all 3 beaches communities every year to benefit breast cancer patients. You all get out and you line the streets and you cheer for them and you make them feel amazing. And I have said forever and ever, our people out here are truly, their hearts, just amazing. We have a great, great community. Our 3 communities are really one community, and it's a fantastic community. But I'll tell you, I think a lot of our assets are being threatened because we have a lot of building going on around us that's causing more and more encroachment into the beaches, and we got to handle that. But I think it's another reason why we need to revisit how much of our tax dollars we're getting back out here. Because if we don't have the ability to deal with growth, and that is happening. Look, we are the #1 asset for tourism. Our beautiful ocean, our beautiful intercoastal, our walkable community where we can just walk right up to anything. But we've got to make sure that we're providing the resources back to this community that are needed to make sure that we can deal with that growth.
Thank you. Ms. Deegan, solid waste is running a sizable deficit in the city of Jacksonville, and money has been borrowed for the last several years from the general fund to prop up the shortfall. Since beach residents contribute to the general fund through property taxes, what will you do to make sure that money is returned to the general fund and not forgiven?
Yeah, it's a problem. I know it's one of the big things that you all bring up every time we talk about this double taxation stuff. And I know it's an aggravating problem. It is absolutely unacceptable what we have done with our solid waste issue in the city of Jacksonville. We have failed to fund it. I think we are in arrears now about $40 million. That's going up by millions of dollars every single year. So we're continuing to borrow money from the general fund because we don't cover that fee. And so you all, who also are paying your solid waste fees, are basically taxed 2 times. And we have to take a look at that. We're going to have to take an intentional look at how we are paying for our garbage in the city of Jacksonville. And we've got to stop doing what we've done in this city for years and years and years. And that is, we kick the can down the road on an issue until it's ballooned so big that it's difficult to deal with. So yeah, we're gonna have to pay down that debt. That's gonna have to happen. And it's a discussion the council's gonna have to have with the mayor.
Mr. Davis?
I've spent many, many hours with beaches leaders talking about the taxation issue and understanding that the high value of property out here, you would see maybe a disproportionate amount of dollars that you send to the city of Jacksonville. And it's not okay to not feel like you are receiving the value of your tax dollars. Now, your government should be focused on making sure that you receive the value that you deserve. And I'm going to address that. I talked a little bit earlier about making sure that we don't have waste in the city of Jacksonville. Because I think when you waste or you're distracted from what the principal purposes of your government are, that's when you get off like this and you have to borrow against tomorrow to make sure you can cover the cost for today. And so that's something that I'm going to address specifically. I'm prepared to do that. I'm equipped to be able to address those issues, and I look forward to doing that for you out of the beaches. So when you do invest in the county government, which you should receive value from, that we address the issues that you feel like there's a deficit.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, as a result of the most recent amendment to the interlocal agreement, Atlantic and Neptune beaches pay garbage tipping fees while Jacksonville Beach does not. And as a side note, when I asked several years ago about why that happened, somebody told me, well, I think Jacksonville Beach was just better at negotiating. Not the right answer, but that seems unjust along with some other provisions in the agreement. Do you think it's time to reopen the interlocal agreement or at least have a discussion between parties?
Absolutely have a discussion between parties. I think it's incredibly important as your next mayor to be able to sit down with the leaders of the community and talk through what that working document should be, all right? You have my commitment there. The tipping fee situation, I think, is not fair. I think it's not the way we should be operating because one person may negotiate better than the other many, many years ago. That shouldn't be carried through in the future, and as mayor, I would remove the tipping fees.
Ms. Deegan?
Yeah, this is one of the, I've spent a lot of time with our beaches mayors talking about this issue and others, and it is a frustration. Look, I do think it's time to probably revisit the interlocal agreement. As I said the last time we were here, I think that can be fraught because it opens up a whole bunch of can of worms. So it may end up going in a direction that you don't necessarily want it to go in, but I think it is very important that we make sure that the beaches are getting their due, and it is a fair agreement. So I would, if that is what the local mayors want, if that is what the community wants, and that is to revisit that interlocal agreement, then I am absolutely there for it. I want the beaches to get the fairest deal that they can get.
Thank you. Ms. Deegan, coastline maintenance and renourishment has been well supported by the city of Jacksonville for years, but now there are greater flooding concerns on the intracoastal waterway, creeks, and ditches at the beaches. How will you support the beach communities in their efforts to address resiliency?
Well, I don't know that there's a more important issue of our time right now than how we deal with climate change and our rising seas. And you're absolutely right. The perils are actually greater along the intercoastal side most of the time than they are on the ocean. And we have that situation not only at the beaches, but in many of our communities. So one of the things that we absolutely must do, and I'll tell you what, you look at what's happened with our beaches and the renourishment that we've done for, what has it been, 40, 50 years. And you look at the difference between how our beaches look and how the beaches look further down the coast where they have not been doing it. And I get frustrated when people say, gosh, it's a waste of money. It's not a waste of money if you want to protect your beaches. And we need to continue to do that. One of the things that I've talked about repeatedly in this campaign is that we have been very, very poor at going and getting our tax dollars back. There are a lot of dollars available right now through the infrastructure bill and others that we can get back to our municipalities to deal with these climate issues. This is a very, very important time. And so I will very intentionally go and bring down those federal hundreds of millions that we leave on the table. Bring down those tax dollars to help us deal with resiliency, and I will make sure that you continue the relationship that you've had with our Chief Resiliency Officer and make sure that we continue to build on the good work that you've already done here. You all are ahead of the curve out here at the beaches, believe it or not, and you probably do. But we've got to make sure that we continue that work.
Wholeheartedly agree. And I appreciate the hard work, Councilman Gulliford, that you've done on renourishment of the dunes. And I know that we're about to address it again. I think it's incredibly important to make sure we protect the greatest asset in the beaches. And I am wholeheartedly in support of making sure that we fully fund the resilience office in Jacksonville. I know there's a plan that's being drafted right now about different assets that we have in the community that not only we need to focus on, because it's incredibly important to protect the assets that are not only nature but made by man, and that's what we are going to do, and make sure that we protect the hard work and investment that you've made in probably your largest investment of your home. That's incredibly important. There are places all over the city of Jacksonville that need to focus on resiliency, and I know the beaches oftentimes through the intercoastal and through the tributaries are more at risk than they are at the coastline. So that's something that we're going to continue to focus on. One difference here, though, is the relationships that I have in Tallahassee and the Florida Capitol are going to become incredibly important, not only in the Senate, but in the House. The leadership of it for the next 8 years, the leadership in the House over the next 8 years are very close, dear friends of mine. And when you go to Tallahassee to ask for appropriations, when we as a community go and ask for appropriations, those relationships are incredibly, incredibly important. So that's something that I'm going to utilize as well to make sure we bring those dollars back to this community.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, past census of uses of recreational facilities in the beach cities, especially those for children, have indicated that a sizable number of participants come from Jacksonville. Should there be some kind of financial support for those facilities from the City of Jacksonville Recreational Department?
The answer is yes, if the beaches communities want to have that. I had learned many years ago when I started running the Jacks Chamber, there's a beaches division out here that small businesses that are a part of our organization. And the one thing I learned really quick is that the beaches love their autonomy. And I understand that, I respect it, and I, as the mayor, want to be called in when I'm needed. I don't want to come in and try to act like I'm the county mayor, so you have to listen to what I would have to say. I think there's going to be a great relationship with the way our administration operates with the local community and the local leaders, not just the elected, but the civic leaders. And I think that it's incredibly important to make sure we maintain these lines of communication to where if there is a need at a park and you don't believe that you're receiving the value of your taxpayer dollars that you send to the city of Jacksonville, that we have a constant line of communication where we can address that. And that's what I will do in the mayor's office.
Ms. Deegan.
Well, I would first of all say, and I just have to push back against this narrative that the only people that can lead the city are people who have led the city. I think that the whole idea of the establishment remaining the same in the city says to me that things remain the same, and they cannot remain the same. The relationship between the city of Jacksonville and the beaches communities have very often been strained. We have not given the beaches communities the support they've needed on many occasions. This is just one example, and absolutely I would be willing to do that. You are seeing, as I said earlier, you're seeing more and more traffic coming into the beaches amenities through all kinds of communities that are surrounding the beaches, but from all over town. This is becoming the place to be. And so everything from parking to parks is becoming overrun. And I think the city of Jacksonville should take a look at that and make sure that we're providing support where we can.
Thank you. Ms. Deegan, 1 penny of the gas tax money collected comes back to the city of Jacksonville. Pedestrian, bicycle safety, and safe beach access to the beaches are always a concern. Do you think the city of Jacksonville should pass on a portion of that gas tax money to the beaches, maybe based on population, so they can address those issues?
Well, again, I think this is where having a mayor that knows you and is from the beaches and understands the issues out here is going to be very important to the beaches. I absolutely would be willing to have those conversations. Obviously, I'm not autonomous in all of this, right? I'm going to have a council that I have to deal with too. But I think that, as I've said earlier, you take a look at what the beaches pay in. You take a look at what they get back. You take a look at the oversized burden that we receive in so many ways. I think it makes sense for the beaches to get more back than what they are getting at the moment. Obviously, that's going to take negotiation, and it's going to take relationships. But I understand how overburdened we are out here and how we have really been shortchanged in terms of what we get back for that.
Mr. Davis.
I agree. It's going to be a first part of the discussion when we have these discussions on how we move forward as a community in this working document. I would absolutely make sure that we talk through that to make sure the value is there. But I want to just address one part of that. I mentioned earlier I grew up on the west side, and we didn't have a lot. We had food on the table, but that was about it at our house. And my mom would drive me out to the beach, and I would have the best time. And I felt like Jackson, even though I lived on the west side, those were my beaches too. And I think that we have to remember that as a community, that there's a lot of people that can't afford to live out at the beach. It's expensive, and I mean, that's part of why the taxpayer burden out here is different than some parts of our community. We have very wealthy sections of our community that pay more of the tax burden than others. But I think that we all have to have that desire in our heart to make sure that everybody should be able to enjoy what we have in our assets in this community. And I just wanted to make sure that I made that clear, that even though they may be from a different part of town, they may be utilizing the beaches. It's all of Jacksonville's beaches, and we need to be open and accepting of everybody.
Well, we're down to the last question, and this one is going to be a doozy. You're going to really like this.
So we're not getting this one, huh?
I'm going to tell you, I had nothing to do with this question. You may think that I did, but I didn't.
I'm a little scared.
So we're going to start with Mr. Davis. What question would you like to ask your opponent?
How fast do you run a 5K?
Faster than you.
This is one place where you will not hear an argument from me.
Well, I think he gave you a short answer.
Yeah,
So.
I'm afraid I'm not going to be that nice. And I'm not going to be ugly either, because I haven't been ugly this whole campaign. I would like to know, because everybody says to me, Daniel Davis is such a nice guy, and every time I've been around you, you just seem like a really nice guy. And I know we had a conversation about this before we ever started the campaign. I don't understand how somebody who says he loves the city and wants to bring people together would be okay with the type of ads that you're running against me. And I really want to understand. So my question is, how do you feel good about running ads saying that I do things that I don't do?
Oh, I am a nice guy. I think you are a very nice person as well. I do.
I've said nothing but nice things about you, mostly.
And I would tell you, there's a, even though I think that we're nice people and we love our city, there are two opposing views of how we think the government should be run. And that's, I think, the fabric of this society. We should be able to have this conversation and not be scared of it. And at the end of the day, we should work together to make sure that we pull our city forward. So I'm going to continue shedding light on the differences between the two thoughts and how the government should be run. And we're going to work hard. We're going to work hard to get to the election day and find out how we move the city forward as a whole. So.
Thank you. Okay, now before I go to closing comments, let me tell you how much the two of you disappointed me. I had a $1 bet with somebody in the audience that at least one of you would mention Mayport. And because of you, I have lost $1. Was it a beer? Beer. Okay. Or it was a beer.
Well, Bill, I got to tell you, I was ready for you today, so I'm sad we didn't talk about me.
Yeah. Okay, we will have closing statements for 1 minute, and we will start with Ms. Deegan.
I just want to thank you all so much for being my neighbors. I want to thank you for always embracing everything that we've done together out here at the beaches. I am a proud 5th generation Jacksonville native, and I am a proud Beaches resident for 35 years. I have put forth what I believe is a very positive, unifying vision for the things that we need to do to bring this city together. The only way we do it is if we do it together. We can't do it with fear and division. We can only do it with unity. So what I'm asking this community to do is to trust the person that you have known and watched lead. I am proud to have the endorsement of Mayor Ellen Glasser and of Mayor Harriet Pruitt, two former wonderful mayors of our beaches who have seen me lead. And I look forward so much to leading this community with love and with unity and to turn the page on really the very, very difficult times we've had in this city for the last 8 years. I ask you for your vote and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
I just want to thank the folks that showed up tonight, you, Bill, and Donna. I think it's been a great discussion, and as I mentioned earlier, I feel like I'm ready to lead. I'm not going to have to learn on the job. I'm going to be able to hit the ground running day one, and I can't wait for that opportunity. I'm going to make Jacksonville a safer, more affordable place to live, and that's going to be focused on just strong, conservative, common sense approach to how you run government. I had the opportunity to lead the charge on adding 100 new police officers to the street when I was on the city council and implementing the Jacksonville Journey, which no one can argue with. It drove crime down. And as your next mayor, that's something that is going to be the top priority in my administration. We're going to add prevention and intervention methods to make sure that the young people don't go into the juvenile justice system, but we're also going to add police officers to the highest crime areas to where we can put the bad guys in jail to make you safer. That's the purpose of government. I can't wait to serve you. I'm asking for your vote on May 16th, and I appreciate the time tonight. Thank you very much.
Round of applause, folks. I'm both personally and as a representative of Beaches Watch and the Beaches community, thank both of you for taking the time to come out here. I think you all were a credit to the office you're running for, and I think most people would agree. I want to have a round of applause for the audience. I think the audience is very cool. And with that, I'm going to walk the microphone over to Maria and see if she has anything else to add, and after that, we'll be adjourned, correct?
Close my shoulder here, thinking you were going to take.
No, you got it.
Well, again, I really want to thank our candidates, Daniel Davis, Donna Deegan, for participating in the forum, stepping up and running. You are both formidable candidates, and it's going to be probably pretty close. So, being an elected official, as we know, is not easy in the community, but we think that you're both prepared for that. So I want to say thank you, and I want to thank our programs committee from Beaches Watch, because they're the heartbeat of our organization. They're the ones that put together these forums and our monthly meetings, so they do an outstanding job, and we're all volunteers. Audience, thank you very much for your decorum. A couple of small outbursts, but that's okay. That's okay. I know this is exciting. I know you can't help yourself sometimes, but thank you so much for being so respectful of the candidates. And please make sure you share our video with your friends and neighbors so that they have a chance to also see tonight. And I think we have some time. Believe it or not, they didn't use up all their time. It's amazing. Politicians in the making, politicians here. But they will, I think, be available to answer any questions one-on-one or discussions that you may have. So thank you. We just probably need to be out of here by 8:30, whatever. Ben's great. He doesn't care. Thank you all again for spending Friday night with us, and have a wonderful evening and a great weekend.